Why there, idiots? Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Gwyneth Paltrow in regards to I would say a recent incident, but it's not quite recent. I'll give you a bit of a backstory in just a second. Let's go ahead and really intro first. Okay, before we go too much further, I'm excited to announce that Observe has a new merch shop complete with updated designs and new products. If you follow the link to the Observe Redbubble shop, you'll be able to find multiple different designs that can be purchased across dozens of different customized products, including shirts, mugs, phone cases, stickers, and even jigsaw puzzles. We worked really hard on these designs, so I hope that you appreciate them. If you do end up purchasing any of the items, please snap a picture for us while you're using it or wearing it and tag us on the socials to be able to show your support, and also I would really like to be able to see you with them. Again, go and check the link in the description and see all of the new Observe merch lines. Now, back to the content of today's video. Gwyneth Paltrow is being sued by Terry Sanderson for a ski collision that occurred back in 2016. In case you haven't been following the case, let me go ahead and give you a brief summary of what has happened so far. Terry Sanderson, a retired optometrist, claims that Gwyneth Paltrow was skiing recklessly and caused a collision that left him with a concussion and several broken ribs. Sanderson's lawyers alleged that Paltrow was skiing fast and out of control and did not give Sanderson enough space to avoid the collision. Paltrow, on the other hand, denies these allegations and claims that, in fact, it was Sanderson who was actually the one who crashed into her from behind. Paltrow's legal team has argued that Sanderson's injuries were minor and that he is exaggerating the extent of his damages. Recently, Sanderson took the stand and testified about the incident. He described how Paltrow was out of control and that she appeared to be skiing too fast for the conditions. Sanderson also alleged that Paltrow did not stop after the collision and continued skiing down the slope. The trial has garnered a fair bit of media attention, partly due to the fact that Paltrow is a celebrity, but also because it raises important questions about accountability on the ski slopes. Skiing and snowboarding accidents can, in fact, obviously be very dangerous and even deadly at times, and it is crucial that all skiers and snowboarders take responsibilities for their actions and adhere to safety guidelines. Now, Paltrow's testimony, which we will be looking at today, directly counteracts the one given by Mr. Sanderson. So we'll be looking at both testimonies throughout the next few videos uploads here to be able to compare and contrast, and we'll also see how the case plays out. I think this is enough backstory, everything along those lines. Let's go ahead and dive directly into the footage itself.
When Moses is saying, "Mommy, mommy, watch me," that's who you were looking at when you were when you were skied directly into your back.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and pause. So there's a pretty substantial pause between the question and the answer, and there's a number of nonverbal things that happen during that time that I find fascinating on some level. First and foremost is the micro shakes no. See a little bit of that popping up there, which is in essence a small sign of they're about to disagree with what was said on some level. Along with that, we're seeing a pretty substantial face manipulator here. It could just be an itch, could be a face blocking gesture, could be a sign of agitation, and that also would be linked in with that little micro shake no, which is still pushing us down. They're likely to disagree with what was just said or stated or asked. Let's see how that plays out.
I do not recall Moses saying, "Mommy, mommy, watch me" on the ski slope.
Okay. Well, Apple was down further, right?
Gonna go ahead and pause again. During this time, and something that you will notice from Gwyneth throughout all of this is the rapid increase in blinking in various areas of recollection. That does line up with genuine recollection as you're trying to recall various aspects of the memories. Your psychological processing increases, which means that your blinking will likely also increase. So that's something to be able to keep in mind, and it does pop up there. And Paltrow also says here that she does not remember her child saying, "Mommy, mommy, look at me." And that is fair. This is something from 2016. There's been a few years in between the two instances here, so that would make sense that she can't remember that. Along with that, the nonverbal communication seems to be backing that up as she's also nodding her head in affirmation throughout that. So that's what I'm seeing so far. Let's continue watching.
Was down further, right?
Yes.
She didn't see it.
No.
Okay. And Moses, he was the one, at least according to Carrie Oakes, was calling your attention.
Okay.
Okay. 9-year-old.
I'm going to go ahead and pause the big okay. A lot of blinking in there. Again, not necessarily recollecting in this point. So what does that blinking mean? It's still psychological processing with the no shake in there as well. It seems as though there might be some form of objection that Paltrow has in regards to this line of thinking. Perhaps she doesn't remember. Something along those lines. Regardless, there is a level of objection to that, ergo the no shake and the rapid increase in blinking. Let's see what that is.
9-year-old. Did he want more attention to have somebody watch them rather than 11?
Not necessarily.
Okay. Moses was skiing above you though, right?
Pretty substantial mouth shrug in there right before answering not necessarily. So that not necessarily, that means, I don't know, nonchalantly not necessarily, which would line up with a parent to child relationship. That could be true. There's not really enough around that to be able to say, but I did see that little mouth shrug in there. Let's continue seeing as she starts to talk here.
Right? He hadn't gotten down as far as you.
He was on my left.
And up.
I was on the right. He was... Oops, sorry. He was on the left side of the slope. Yes, I believe kind of a little bit uphill.
Okay. And that...
Okay, I want to go ahead and pause here. Something that I'm noticing about Gwyneth during this time are the spatial recollections that she's using. It seems to be fairly constant with her being located on the right side and her child being located here on the left and maybe a little bit up. And you could see her looking around in various areas. Now, there's a theory in nonverbal communication where depending on where a person looks in their field of vision, that it could be implying that they are falsifying information or recalling a real genuine memory. There hasn't been enough scientific evidence to be able to say that that is a constant, a generality across everybody. So I'm not going to be able to use that here. I will say, however, that it has been found that a person is far more likely to break their line of contact, to look into a distance or into space and narrow their eyes in order to recollect. And we do see that here from Paltrow. So that does indicate to me that she is making an attempt to recollect these circumstances from years ago. So far, nothing that I've seen that has pushed me away from believing her. Let's continue.
Okay. And that's where your attention was when you were hit, allegedly, in the back.
I don't know where my attention was the moment I was struck in the back. I'm sorry.
Okay, well...
I would actually buy that as well. During that time, we see a pretty substantial increase in blinking, which has been fairly regular for each question so far. So that's something that we want to be able to keep in mind, is that increase in blinking seems to walk hand in hand with them just talking. And along with that, though, we're also seeing the micro shakes no, and we see a little tiny lopsided shrug in there as well. And that goes right along with the words that they're saying, I don't know. That is synchronized so far. Again, I am being pushed towards authenticity from Paltrow so far. Let's continue watching.
Okay, well, that's what you said, which is what happened.
He struck me in the back. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
So the skis are coming. How far did the skis get in between your legs before you guys fell?
Yeah, his body pressed up into my back.
Okay.
So I froze. I don't know exactly how far the skis would have come through.
Okay.
Because then I noticed his body pressing against my back.
Okay.
And then it was probably a few good seconds, and then we fell to the right. Somebody must have caught an edge.
Okay. So when you froze and you're...
I'm going to go ahead and talk about that recollection there. I noticed a good mix-up between the head movements that we were seeing in there, and they did actually seem to line up with what the psychological processing behind it may have been. So I don't know, but somebody may have caught an edge. You're seeing that no shake in there. So that would line up in there. And then we're also seeing these other areas about talking how I felt his body behind me, and there's some positive nods in there to affirm that. And we're also noticing that some of these details, like how far forward were the skis in there, they're not clear to Gwyneth at this time, which would make sense. It would be almost more alarming if Gwyneth was like, you know what, actually, they were approximately like maybe 6 inches from the toes of my skis to their skis, whatever. It would be almost more alarming to hear an exact answer from Paltrow on that front because of the time in between the two instances. Not likely to remember something like that. And then along with that, we're able to see the synchronized nonverbal communication as she's recollecting her experience of what happened that day. So far, I am still being pushed to believe Gwyneth. Let's keep watching.
You're skiing together. I think you said at one point it was like you were spooning.
When we fell down, I fell on his body. He fell on the ground. And so it was kind of like a spoon on the ground.
Did you know the rules at the time of the collision that if you're in a collision with someone, you need to give your name and information, contact information?
So because I was hit by Mr. Sanderson and he was at fault, I assumed that Eric, who was our ski instructor, who was there at the time, who was overseeing the event, he said, I'm going to leave all of your information. And he said, you should go ski down because my kids were waiting for me.
And I appreciate that. But my question was, did you know of the rule of skiing if you are in a collision that you need to share that information?
Your Honor, this is irrelevant. Part of a negligence claim.
Overruled. Overruled. Go ahead.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. At the time of the collision, were you aware of the rule that if you're in a collision, you need to share your name, your contact information with the person that you're involved in a collision with?
I don't think I was aware of the rule.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause. There were a number of things that happened. First, I want to go back to the recollection of how they fell. And that still, even with Gwyneth's recollection of it, that could still line up with the injuries sustained by Sanderson. So if that were the case, then this still doesn't, Sanderson's injuries do not in any way implicate Gwyneth, because Gwyneth's story in and of itself still even shows that that could have still really, what's the word I'm looking for? This happens more than you would think. Would really I think this is what I was about to say. That even in Gwyneth's recollection of things, the moves and the actions done by Sanderson would have also been able to instigate the actual injuries sustained by Sanderson as well. So that's just something to be able to make note of, that this isn't disqualifying anything that we've seen from the victim of this case so far. Let's continue.
Were you aware that there is kind of a rule of common decency to do that?
I would not have left the scene without leaving my information, and my information was left.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause and talk about this. I have gone skiing and snowboarding a number of times in my life, and I actually personally did not know about the you need to leave your information if you run into somebody on a ski hill rule. Wasn't aware of that. So if that's a thing, especially for those of you who are avid snow goers out there and perhaps do a lot of snow sports, let me know. Is that a thing? I was not aware of that. However, we're seeing that she's having difficulty recollecting that as well. And then her answer to this is a clean dodge of this person's questioning, which is leading her into a little bit of a corner. And it's a clean dodge around that if something had happened like that, I would have done a thing like that. In this case, the person themselves, they said that they would leave my information for me and I should go hang out with my kids. So with that all still does seem to line up. It does strike me as interesting that Paltrow also didn't know about this rule of leaving your information, but even still, it seems as though she tried to cover her butt through an extended team's actions, if that makes sense. Let's continue.
Did you provide that information?
No, Eric Christensen, who was the ski instructor with us, said he would leave all the information.
You don't know if he did or did not, though, do you? You weren't there when he did.
Well, subsequently, I know that he did.
You're going down relatively slowly.
Okay, so tried to trap her with that. So at the very end, Paltrow's more or less just like, well, I mean, he said he would, and I took him at his word. So subsequently, I knew he would do the thing he said he would. And then it kind of cuts off after that. So now we're about to dive into the rest of this area. Let's see how it all plays out.
Slowly, when all of a sudden you heard a strange rustling noise behind you.
Yes.
Okay. And you felt like a rush of air in a strange way.
Yes.
Okay. And two skis slid in between my skis.
That's correct.
And all of a sudden, there was a body from the whole front of a body pressing into my back.
That's right.
Okay. We'll talk about this in a minute. And there was a man behind me pressing into me. How did you know it was a man?
Because he was making some strange noises that sounded male, and he was large. So I assumed it was a male.
Okay, he was large?
I felt all my back
Okay.
pressing.
Okay, so you can hear we're trying to maybe catch out in some of the details. How did you know if it was a man, if they were behind you, for instance? To which Paltrow has what I would consider satisfactory answers for anybody doing a casual observation. What sounded and felt kind of like it was a guy, so I assumed it was a guy also. He was fairly large. And, well, how do you know he was large? Again, assuming if he was behind you, to which Paltrow has a pretty satisfactory answer. Well, from what I was able to tell with his contact on the back of me, it felt like a fairly large individual, aka I assumed it was a man. So these make sense. We're able to see Gwyneth kind of going back and forth with the questioning here. Let's keep watching.
Okay. All right. There was a man pressing behind me, pressing into me. I was extremely upset.
Well, I was confused at first, and I did.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here to make note about something that the lawyer is doing here. I was extremely upset. And then you watch the lawyer and you could see her nodding. This is a subconscious thing that many people can do to be able to influence another person to simply agree. You can even try it yourself. If you state a thing and then you nod at the person that you're stating the thing to, if it's in a question form, they are more likely to agree with you if you're already nodding in agreement with yourself. So we're seeing that come out from the lawyer trying to kind of coax Gwyneth into a certain line of phrasing here. Let's see how that plays out.
And I didn't know exactly what was happening. It's a very strange thing to happen on the ski slope. And
I agree.
I froze, and I would say I got very upset a couple seconds later.
Okay. Let me just continue on here.
What's even thinking about that psychologically, again, the response to a possible threat is to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. The freezing response is definitely one that would make sense, especially in that situation where taken by surprise, there's not really too many other things you can do. You can try to perhaps run, or so flight is possible, but if you're already skiing, that's pretty difficult. You could try to fawn. That is a possibility, but difficult if you're going down a hill and somebody comes behind you. So that wouldn't make much sense. And then also fight is in that same line. None of those would make sense. So freeze would make sense, which is what Gwyneth says she did. So she froze at first, and then the emotional response to it started to bubble up. That does make sense in context, and then it does actually push me into a level of authenticity from Paltrow again. So let's just keep watching to see how this all plays.
Continue on here. I just wanted to make sure that I got this all right. I didn't know if it was an intentional assault of a sexual nature.
Right.
Okay. Was he grinding and thrusting or something, or just the noises? What made you think it was a sexual assault?
So that was a quick thought that went through my head when I was trying to reconcile what was happening. I was skiing, and two skis came between my skis, forcing my legs apart, and then there was a body pressing against me, and there was a very strange grunting noise. So my brain was trying to make sense of what was happening. I thought, is this a practical joke? Is someone doing something perverted? This is really, really strange. My mind was going very, very quickly, and I was trying to ascertain what was happening.
Okay.
That's well prepared, and I feel like it's a fairly logical position that Gwyneth has taken there. It's not a huge logical leap to arrive at, is this that kind of instance, especially as an AFAB person. It's just a likelihood. So that makes sense that she did initially pop there, and then she also clarifies that that's not what seemed to be happening, but that's just what her gut reaction was. So that does make sense. Let's continue.
I think you said, I didn't know if it was an accident, but he was groaning and grunting in a very disturbing way.
Yes, there was a sort of groan coming out of his mouth.
Okay. Then you said, I froze.
Yes.
We kept skiing.
Right.
We went to the right.
Yes.
We came crashing down together.
That's right.
So you're down on the ground, and then you started yelling at him.
I don't remember if I started yelling at him while I was on the ground. I remember pushing away because I was very upset and it was still very strange to me what had happened. And I pushed down the hill and I turned around and I yelled at him.
Okay. Did you scream before you went down?
I want to go ahead and make a note of the verbal patterns between the two and everything that Gwyneth is saying. She's saying I yelled, and then we're hearing this word scream come up a lot. And those are two different words. One has a much heavier emotion than the other. So if somebody just says I yelled something, yelling has a level of nonchalantness about it, considering context. However, screaming rarely is something that can ever be nonchalant. You never hear somebody nonchalantly scream anything. You can hear them yell something nonchalantly for sure. So we're hearing this emotive distinction made between the sound that Paltrow made. And I think that that's a fascinating thing done by the questioning here. It's definitely designed to be able to present the actions in a less collected, less calm way, a more out of control, perhaps emotionally vicious style. So that's something that I want to be able to make note of that is being intentionally done here. Let's see how this actually goes here.
I don't think so.
Okay. So if others heard a scream, that wasn't you.
No, I froze. When he slid between my skis, I absolutely froze. And I don't remember yelling or screaming until I was very angry at what had happened.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. That's just an important thing to note because later on in this very video, we'll be able to see a ski report filed in which Gwyneth will kind of cover what they just said here, but they said they don't remember screaming before the actual incident themselves, and that was a point of this case. Let's see how that plays out.
Okay. And so you guys are on the ground, and then you said to him, I think you don't know if you were up or if you were still on the ground, but he was still on the ground, right?
Yes.
When you said, what are you doing?
Yes.
Okay. Like, why did you do that?
Yes.
And he said, I think you skied into me.
Yes.
And that's when you were furious and said, you skied directly into my effing back at the top of your lungs.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I apologize for my bad language.
And well, in fact, you were...
Okay, so we're seeing some intentional nonverbal communication from Gwyneth. She does not actually feel bad, I would say, about her bad language. We see the forced fake oopsies. This is a partial fear expression with the pulling down of the corner of his mouth, raising the eyebrows, widening the eyes. So partial fear, oopsies, I'm sorry. And then she says, I apologize for my bad language. The only thing that I see that might back that up would be an increase in blinking, but that doesn't really imply anything other than extra psychological processing. I was checking to see if perhaps maybe there would be a sign of guilt in there as well. And it turns out that I did not see anything in the guilt or shame line of emotive processing. Now, perhaps she does really feel bad, but at least non-verbally speaking, she doesn't really feel too bad. Considering the circumstances, I bet she didn't feel bad then either if everything played out the way that she says. Let's keep watching.
You were screaming that so hard, you were worried that Moses was hearing you.
Yes.
Okay. And after you were screaming to him, isn't that when Mr. Sanderson said, I'm sorry, I'm sorry?
He said, I said, you skied directly into my effing back. And he said, oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Right. And that was you screaming at him while he's on the ground still. Right?
I was yelling at him.
Pretty loud. Pretty forceful.
I was pretty upset.
Again, we're hearing this back and forth. You were screaming, I was yelling. You were screaming, I was yelling. And so we're really trying to present these two different ideas, and one definitely comes across as more unhinged and out of control, and that's an intentionally done thing. It is a low level of manipulation done to be able to present a story in a certain way, but Gwyneth is not really giving into that, so regularly trying to counteract that. Let's keep watching.
Sad.
Right? You're small but mighty. Actually, you're not that small.
This area, forced fake smile doesn't reach the eyes. However, the eyes do narrow, and now that narrowing of eyes is usually an indicator of scorn, could be an indicator of a level of disgust or frustration. It's usually in scorn, with the tight-lipped smile and the forced fake laugh in there as well. there is definitely a level of uncomfortableness from Gwyneth, perhaps even distaste or aggression in regards to that line of speaking. It's just uncomfortable. And we're seeing that play out all over Gwyneth's face, and understandably so. Let's see how this all plays.
So when he said, I'm sorry, would you agree that he kind of mumbled it?
Yes.
So since you're not down here, may I ask how tall you are?
I'm just under 5'10".
Okay. I am so jealous.
I think I'm shrinking though.
You and me both. I have to wear 4-inch heels just to make it to 5'5".
Well,
So
they're very nice.
and you're bringing this claim.
I wanted to pause. I left that area in here specifically because people were like, but was this lawyer fangirling over Gwyneth Paltrow in this area? It does kind of come across as if that might be a possibility. I disagree. What I believe this to be very thoroughly, especially considering the other levels of slight manipulation that has been presented by this lawyer, is that this is definitely a rapport building instance. She's trying to win across Gwyneth on some level on this like personable, haha, well, I have to get healed, blah, 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 all this other garbage that she's saying to be able to get Gwyneth to be more on her side. That is another level of light manipulation. It's very common. So I wanted to be able to make note of that just to be able to address some of those rumors that might be a fangirling situation. I highly doubt it. Let's continue.
This claim for $1.
I am.
Okay. In fact, your counsel, Steve, do you still have that dollar bill? That you
Use your own.
I'm not going to respond to that. Nah, I don't get it. Sure. Yeah, I don't need it. You saw that Mr. Owens weighed about $1 around, right?
I did.
Okay. $1 in symbolic damages. Is that accurate?
It's an actual dollar that I'm asking for.
Okay. But you also have testified when I asked you questions in your deposition that $1 is symbolic. Do you remember me asking?
It's symbolic because the damages would actually be more.
But remember me asking you, is it symbolic? And you said, yes, it is.
Yes.
Okay. And I asked you as well, we learned about that through Taylor Swift because she asked for $1 in symbolic damages, right?
And I think I said at that point I had not been familiar with it, but I since am.
Now you are. But at the time, a couple of years ago in 2020, you didn't know anything about Taylor Swift's $1 symbolic damage lawsuit?
Just relevance, Your Honor.
Counsel?
Yeah. Because I asked her about it at the time, and she denied it. Correct.
Can you answer the question?
Relevance.
I was not aware at the time.
I'm going to be real here. So the lawyer again is posing this question of, you did this thing, and then there's now this level of controlled disgust, perhaps disbelief, that's coming in on the lawyer's face here. And it's in regards to this other trial regarding Taylor Swift and this symbolic dollar that was being used. I personally also do not know. It turns out that Gwyneth Paltrow and I apparently know the same amount about skiing and Taylor Swift. So now we're here. But I did not know about this either. And apparently this is just outrageous to the lawyer asking questions. This just seems like it's not a possibility. Whereas to me, it seems like it would quite probably be a possibility, really. But I find that fascinating that she's really trying to paint out Gwyneth's understanding or presentation of things as ignorant on some levels. I'm seeing a lot of manipulation from one side here. Let's continue watching.
Are you good friends with Taylor Swift?
No.
Overruled?
You're not good friends with Taylor Swift.
I would not say we're good friends. We are friendly. I've taken my kids to one of her concerts before, but we don't talk very often.
You've been here every minute of this jury.
Go ahead and pause. So we're about to move over to a different person questioning here. So that last part, we heard that increase in pitch, you're not good friends. No. And so then there's qualifiers after that obviously Gwyneth gives. And that increase in pitch and tone, that indicates strain. It indicates a level of... indicates a level of agitation in regards to that specific questioning, and that makes sense. It's an uncomfortable question, and especially if Gwyneth and Taylor have interacted on some level, then this is sticky for Gwyneth to respond. So she responds and tries to do so elegantly. I feel like that was handled rather well. Let's go ahead and move on to this next speaker here.
Of this jury. True?
True.
And you're intending to be here every minute next week?
I am.
Have you enjoyed yourself?
I've learned a lot.
Who hit who?
Mr. Sanderson hit me.
The comment was that Mr. Sanderson doesn't take criticism well. Do you take criticism well?
In my profession, after all these years of being in the public eye, I think I take it relatively well.
I want to make a comment about that. So it's an interesting question that's posed here all the way around. And her response to that is also fascinating. In all of my years of being in front of the public eye, I think I take it relatively well. This is where she breaks eye contact, looks off down to the side. This could be a level of shame or guilt. At very least, it is a small red flag for me non-verbally. Why does that pop up there? Why does she break her eye contact here and in such a way that is very commonly found in shame and guilt when talking about whether or not she handles criticism well? Now, for those of you that might know some of her backstory and actions, you let me know in the comments below. Is she, in fact, very good with criticism, or is this something that she needs work on? Her nonverbal communication says that there might be something that she's not being upfront about, or at least had an objection even in her own mind, where perhaps she didn't handle some sort of conflict or criticism well. I just find that fascinating that popped up there. Let's continue watching.
Is it not? You keep sending me notes. I didn't cause these damages. Right?
That's absolutely correct.
Do you feel some empathy?
Something that does bother me on some level about Gwyneth's responses is that she regularly uses the absolutely correct or absolutely right. That absolutely qualifier pops in there a lot. And I have brought up regularly on the channel that this sort of phrasing can be an indicator of possible deceit, those unneeded qualifiers like that. However, it seems as though these have been popping up very regularly across multiple different questionings. Now, there is the possibility that there is still a level of deceit to that absolutely is in there just to be able to hammer things home, could be deceitful. That being said, nothing else has been pushing me to believe that Gwyneth has been deceitful in this part. There have been no patterns that have stuck out. There have been no spikes in her nonverbal communication that would push me in that direction so far. So this absolutely thing is just something that I want to keep in mind as we're moving forward throughout this trial. Perhaps it's an indicator of something. Right now, it's just too nebulous to understand. Let's go.
Some empathy for Mr. Sanderson that was declining brain.
You know, I really do. I feel very sorry for him. It seems like he's had a very difficult life, but I did not cause the accident, so I cannot be at fault for anything that.
Very fascinating nonverbal communication during this time. A lot of vocal difficulty, obviously, a lot of hesitations and stutterings, and then we're seeing these micro shakes, and they're mixed in with some circular head movements and some up and down. It's just going nuts. So obviously, there's a substantial amount of extra psychological processing going on around this question, and it's a fairly interesting question to respond to. Do you feel bad for Sanderson's declining mental health, more or less? Is that something that you feel bad by? And Gwyneth Paltrow does not know Sanderson very well. They're not close, they're not buddies, so the level of empathy and sympathy that can exist there is going to be limited in and of itself just due to their own social interactions. So we're seeing that come in where, well, I mean, I feel kind of good, but not really. So that immediately clarifies what's going on with these odd head movements that's going on from Gwyneth, with the ups and the downs and the lefts and the rights and the circles and everything that falls into there. It makes sense considering the question. Let's see how the rest of this plays out.
For anything that subsequently happened to him.
So his daughter got up and said he was cursing out her daughter. Did you hear that?
I did hear that.
Did you cause that?
I did not cause that.
Did you give him brain injuries that were evident on his MRI in 2006?
I did not.
All right, so it's 229.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing a level of manipulation, again, coming from the lawyer asking questions with this level of disgust. Did you cause him to have brain damage? That was shown on the MRI. And he has a level of disgust on there, and he's shaking his head no and shrugging in there. So this is all pushing Gwyneth to say no, to be able to just follow along with what he's saying. It's a low level of manipulation. Again, that's being done from both sides. And Turns out that as you continue to look into just court footage in general, this sort of manipulation happens on the regular. So it's not too surprising to see. Let's continue watching.
And this is, no one's thinking lawsuit yet, right?
No.
And that's you on the left with the G. And
Yes.
it says, can you read it?
It says, I came in. That guy sort of hurt me. I'm going to get a massage at 3. Gigi is here if he wants to come.
Gigi was helping with the kid.
Yeah, Gigi was our babysitter.
All right. Did you go in earlier because you had been hit?
I did, yes.
Did you personally pay for a ski pass at Deer Valley?
I did.
And was it a full day pass?
It was.
And was it, is the monetary difference between the full day pass and the half day pass more than $1?
It is.
Miss Van Orman kept saying, when you were allegedly hit, were you hit?
I was.
You know what occurred, right?
I absolutely do. I was there.
Ooh, that part's interesting. I absolutely do. I was there. So we're seeing a substantial head shake. No, that absolutely do. I was there. There's some extra qualifiers in there. We're seeing a lip compression afterwards and a substantial eye block in there as well. I absolutely do. I was there. It does pop up as a red flag in my field of view, so to speak. That directly contradicts everything else that seemed to be quite authentic earlier on. So what's going on with this here? There's something that inspired this spike in her nonverbal communication. I absolutely did. I was there. I'm not sure what that is. Now, like I've said before, the head shake, no, can be a contradiction. It can be a desynchronization like that. It can also be an indicator of I don't know, or you might not believe, or it seems unbelievable, preposterous even. Perhaps that's what that is what that's related to, along with the rest of that, with the I absolutely did, I was there. To me, that just seems like a red flag. So I would want to be able to come back in and readdress that and look into that some more as the trial continues on. So just wanted to make note of that. Let's continue.
When they say, did anyone witness this? And Mr. Sanderson doesn't really remember things. You remember things, don't you?
I do.
Sustained?
Were you knocked out?
I was not knocked out. No,
Do you have memory loss of the event?
I do not. I mean, it was a long time ago, but
That's fair. This is Christensen's report.
yes.
It says, we'll go ahead and pause here. Again, Gwyneth pulls in the fact that this was a while ago. It's been a minute since this all unraveled. So there might be some details that are missing. But also the point that's being posed here is that out of the two different people involved in this collision, only one sustained the concussion that could, in fact, affect memory. So that is an important thing to be able to make note. Now, there were obviously another witness was on there, and if you would like, I can take a look at his testimony as well. But that is just a fascinating thing that has been brought up there. Even just from the two involved in the collision itself, only one would have suffered possible memory loss, and that's not Paltrow. Let's just keep watching this little bit. This is the part where I was saying we're going to be able to hear and watch Gwyneth address this question that was being had about her screaming before the accident, her saying, I don't believe that I did, or I don't remember doing so. Let's see.
This male skier took her out from behind. Is
Yes.
that what happened?
Yes.
This report is accurate.
Very.
I didn't see it, but heard her scream as she went down. Do you dispute that?
I don't.
I skied directly to her.
Just want to pause and make note of that. Earlier, Gwyneth definitely said that she doesn't remember or probably didn't scream. Now she's saying, obviously, that she's not disputing the fact that somebody else claims she screamed. So perhaps that still could nestle in that, well, I don't necessarily remember, so that could be it. I just want to make note of that to be able to be fair all the way around here. There is a possible contradiction between two different storylines here. Let's go.
Directly to her. Did he do that?
He did, yes.
The man was behind her. Both were in discomfort. Is that all true?
Yes.
During lunch, she talked of being stiff and sore. Is that a true statement?
It is.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause there. And that's going to be where this area of the video wraps up. If you would like me to be able to continue looking into this case, let me know. I'm also simultaneously still going through the Murdaugh case and getting things out for that. So just let me know kind of what you're more interested in the comments of the video. So what I saw from Gwyneth during this time were definitely indicators of authenticity, even down to which details were and weren't remembered. It does seem to make sense and seems to be authentic. Now, there were definitely areas that were red flags that popped up, especially in that area of the disconnect between storylines and that huge spike that happened where it was kind of questioning and summarizing everything that had just been said. So these are all fascinating things that are here. Right now, I am still lending or tending towards Gwyneth being genuine during this. It seems to make the most sense. Also around the timing of how this all played out, it's interesting and it makes more sense that way. However, there is definitely more that has to be unpacked. There are more testimonies, there are more witness accounts, things like that. So if you would like me to be able to take a look at any of those, let me know in the comments of this video. If you would like to be able to reach out to me to maybe leave suggestions or comments or anything like that, you could reach out to the socials. Either myself or somebody from my team will be responding to you. You can email me. You can check out Patreon if you would like to be able to support me in a different way, or you can just do whatever it is that you like, because that's honestly likely what you're going to do anyways. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.